Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. So, Rach, I'm a firm believer in using your strengths. I started my business because I love words, and our sponsor Rounded helps me handle the numbers because it's an easy invoicing and accounting system.
Yeah, I use it as well. You can make data-driven decisions about your rates, which clients to prioritize, and I love the gamification of it all.
You love gamification.
I do. I love how you can set what you want to earn that month and see it go up. It's great. Yeah.
And I think it's really good because the rounded reports are great for creative professionals. And I think that I love the fact that my accountant can go in and have a look at my numbers before we have those conversations at the end of each quarter. I think that's really helpful.
And don't forget, if you're a Rachel's List Gold member, you get 20% off the annual rounded subscription. And that is every year, not just as a one-off.
And the details are in the show notes.
Yep. Hey Lynn, how are you today? You're back from Western Australia.
I am. I'm right back into it. I had a nice week with family, and I think it's one of the things I love about freelancing. You can work anywhere. So I managed to get work done and I saw my family at the same time. And I know you've been away. We've just had a long weekend, and the week before you were relaxing off grid somewhere.
I had 2 long weekends in a row, which is never good when you have a 10-year-old because they start to expect the Monday off.
Yes.
So anyway, yes. But I'm very excited about our guest today, Melissa Hoyer. She's a journalist and media commentator, and she has a really varied career. So I think this is going to be a great chat.
I know, I think so too. She does interesting things. I follow Melissa on Instagram and everything, and I think she's great. I love her career. So let me read a little bio for Melissa, and then we'll get her into the hot seat.
Great.
So for nearly 20 years, Melissa Hoyer has been a high-profile journalist and commentator, specialising in popular culture, lifestyle, fashion, celebrity and social issues. She's got a no-nonsense, down-to-earth and witty approach to style and pop culture. She's a popular communicator in all avenues in the media, including TV, radio, print and digital. She's also big on social. She's got more than 90,000 followers on Instagram, and she's just starting a Substack that we're going to talk about her with. So thanks and welcome, Melissa.
Welcome.
Oh, it's so nice to be with you both. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
90,000 Instagram followers. What's your secret?
I
Can
know.
you get some of that?
I remember there was something that I did, and it was probably about 12 months, 18 months ago, and it just really resonated, and it was shared a lot. And then literally I remember thinking, and I looked that next morning, and my numbers had gone up and up and up, and then it sort of then just kicked off again. I did something else. Now it was all about I put up something that was incredibly shareable. Actually, I think it started with when I went to see Kylie Minogue in Las Vegas. I went to her show, and I put up a really short, sharp reel of part of her performance. And it just happened to be really, really good. I mean, as in, it wasn't, I didn't spend hours editing or doing all that, because I think the more authentic things are, the better. And it just was a moment. And it was shared so many times. I know I grew a lot then. And also when Jennifer Coolidge was in Australia for South by Southwest the year before last, I think, and she was doing a talk about White Lotus. And again, I just put a reel together. No, it was a reel, but it was one beautiful story. She talked about not so much fame, but about the thing about feeling good about yourself is to always go and see the bad stuff. Don't always go and see the good stuff, whether it's theatre or music or watch the good TV shows. Go and see the shit. And it was just because it makes you feel really good about yourself. And I put this up, and that reel, I think, got like a couple of million views, again, because it was shared. So that it sort of started off like that. And I don't know, I don't post a lot of grid posts, as many as I used to. I mean, I probably put up more stories, but when I do post a grid post, and it has its own carousel album, I want to make them I want to make them as interesting as possible, as opposed to just putting up, avocado on toast. I think we're over all those days of seeing what everyone had for breakfast that morning.
Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely doing something right. I mean, give us a bit of background about your career and how it's evolved over the years.
Okay. Well, I first started my first job, actually, I was working in the PR department as a publicity assistant for Maya. And I was dealing, obviously, so in publicity, I was dealing with a lot of journalists, obviously, because, that's what you do.
Yeah.
At that stage, there was a woman by the name of Sky Yates, who was the fashion editor of the then Daily Mirror newspaper, which when Australia had afternoon papers, there was the Sun was in Sydney, there was the Daily Mirror in Sydney, and I'm sure in Melbourne, Brisbane, we all had, we're talking before we're doing this now. This is like we would physically read newspapers. So she was taking a 12-month sabbatical, and she knew that I'd wanted to get into journalism because I would be talking to her a lot and the editor. I said, well, why don't you come and do her 12-month fashion editor role at the Daily Mirror? And I thought, this is like fantastic, because I'd been studying, and I wanted to get into media.
Yeah.
And it was like the perfect segue. I thought, even if it's 12 months, what an amazing experience that is. So anyway, resigned from that job, took that job, and then Sky Yates, who unfortunately did pass away over the weekend, so which I just heard from her.
Gosh.
Yeah, which was really ironic that we're talking about this. She was, so anyway, I ended up staying at News Corp. Sky got her job back, but at that stage they sent me over, and I was in the fashion and the social editor for the Daily and Sunday Telegraph. And so I then stayed there for ages, I think it was over 20 years, and then I left. And within that time, I started doing stuff on Foxtel. I created a fashion show, firstly with a guy called Martin Fabini, who was my co-EP. Then we dealt with Steve Vazar's company, and then we had I co-hosted it with Hugh Jackman. So that was sort of funny. Whenever I see him, we always laugh, and he said as a joke, he'll say, "It was that fashion show, that's what got me to work."
You must be watching what's unfolding for him right now.
Yeah, I am. I know, and it's because he's such a lovely guy. Deborah's such a lovely woman, and then you read stuff and you just think, oh, isn't it? It is what it is, and that personal stuff. I don't know. We read it all, but I've never been, and I think this is an interesting thing, because I was sort of doing social pages and stuff like that, but writing gossip was never my thing. And I don't know, I just feel maybe it was because I was brought up a good little Catholic girl or something. And I just, the physicality of writing gossip, I just could never. I mean, I always just look at the really good gossip columnists that we've all, read or seen, and I think, well, good on you. I just often, I can't put myself out there, weirdly.
Yeah.
Maybe because you know them.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that actually is the case a lot when you have sort of met people or you've worked with them to a degree, or and I love doing like celebrity interviews. I mean, I love asking the questions, and that's why it's funny. Even when I talk about myself, I'm not 100% comfortable. I'll do it. But I remember once one of my teachers said on one of my reports, Melissa is very inquisitive. And that was way back in when I was a kid. And I always think about that. And I think that has sort of followed me through my entire sort of working life. I love, whether it's being away for a travel story, or I'm at a restaurant, or I'm doing something, I'm always wanting to know, so where did that, so that fish, where did that come from? Or if I'm interviewing a celebrity, I just loved to hear their stories, as opposed to them sort of turning it around and saying, but yeah, what about you? So it's that constant curiosity. That's the word I love, and I think I've got that on my social media handles, curious, because I'm just always, and I think always curious. I think as we get older too, it's so important to keep your mind constantly curious.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're freelance now. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I left the News Corp, and then I went actually back to news as an editor at large of news.com.au when it was sort of in its infancy, and then I stayed there until middle of COVID. And then, and then, as we all know, with the media world, and that role was interesting at news.com, because I was in all of this time, I was doing a lot of like commentary for different TV shows, whether it was Sunrise or Today Show or Morning Show, or I sort of nearly became, which was lovely, a bit of a go-to as the let's go and get a grab from Melissa on a pop culture issue. It's funny. After this, I'm doing something for one of the networks, doing a bit of a commentary on the rise of dupes, as in people creating, whether it's beauty products or whatever, that they're doing like a dupe. But yeah, I think you had to get to that point where you get known for being able to encapsulate an issue or something quite succinctly. And anyway, I quite enjoy doing that. Actually, no, I really enjoy doing it.
Well, how do you feel like celebrity culture has evolved in the age of social media? Because you've seen it change, so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has its great points and its bad points. I mean, the good points for celebrities, they can put their message out there, literally from the horse's mouth. So, so they're not using sort of like
an army of publicists or whatever.
Yeah, an army of publicists, or leaving it to the journalist or the columnist or the commentator to then create the story. So I think in that regard, it's like with all of us, we can all put out our message, whether it is a personal thing or whether we've written a story or where we're putting up the link to this podcast or whatever. We use our own our platforms. And that's where I think social media has been fantastic. We can use, and celebrities particularly can use their own platform to tell their own story. But then, of course, the adverse thing is then once you put something out there, particularly if you are a big-time celebrity, then you have to be prepared for the potential backlash. So and the fact that you are then so gettable, you are so available to your followers. And then, I think the one thing probably, a lot of big celebrities don't do, or they say they don't do, is read the comments. Because I know often I'll go to a story that's written about someone and you read the comments and you can just go down that rabbit hole. So you can imagine if you were reading a story and there were, 1,000 comments all negative about you. I mean, if your constitution isn't tough, I think that would be a really tough thing. So I always wonder when celebs say, I never read the comments. I think with some that's probably is true, but I would imagine there would be a few that would read every comment, and I think it mentally would totally drain you.
Yeah, you'd spiral, wouldn't you?
You would, because when I sometimes read comments from stories that I'm reading, and the comments being directed at the person that's being written about, they are horrendous. I mean, and that's the purely serious part of social media, the bullying and the disgusting language and the everything that can be told you what you are and you're this and you're that. I mean, it can be so cruel, and that is, I think, the absolute downfall part of the rise of social media.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's brought us more accessibility with these celebs, but there was something recently, there's apparently this big rift in the Beckham family, with the son and everything and his wife. And I think what's interesting about those sorts of stories is you then hear other stories about where the brothers have commented or done an emoji on some comment. And so that snowballs as well while everybody unpacks it, so there's all that as well.
That's right. So as soon as you then then comment on a comment, and then you create a new story, a new news story, because yes, you might be the sister-in-law or the cousin, and then you might have put a thumbs up to a particular comment, and then that becomes, oh, and cousin Joanne put a thumbs up, so that must mean it's true. Yeah,
It's
so
a whole new entertainment journalism world compared to when
absolutely.
I was at TV Week, for
But
example.
yeah, so the snowball just becomes greater and greater, and then that's when then us as the public, who are reading these stories, then we go, oh, what are we to believe? So it's and the amount of people, I'm sure you two have it as well. People who'll send you through, whether it's memes or stories, and they'll say, oh, look at this, did you read this? Or mainly with images now with AI. Like someone said, I remember when there was a shop going around recently that a woman that I know who is quite elderly, she sent me this photograph of an alleged photo of Meghan Markle and her daughter. And this lady sent it, she sent it through to like a community group that I've got where I live in my little wood. And so oh, look at this lovely photograph of Meghan Markle and her daughter, isn't it beautiful? And I was I felt awful, but I actually then did a reply all, and I just said, look, I don't mean to be rude, but actually that is total AI, and it's not true, it's not. And then lovely woman, she messaged me back privately, and I just said, look, oh, please don't think I'm being rude, but this is where stories then, they start just blowing up, and then someone else sends that, and they say, oh no, but blah blah sent to me, and it is a picture of thing. And so and this is the AI issue. There's so many things that, and I will say, particularly our older generation, like my mum, if I probably said that to her, she'd probably think, oh, isn't that sweet? Because there were different gens, there are different groups of people who
they take it at face value
how AI works, and it is in so many areas that a lot of people aren't aware of.
This whole culture is moving so fast. Social media is this constant hungry beast that needs to be fed. How do you decide what you cover, when you dip in, when you dip out? How do you decide? How does that work for you?
And that is the interesting thing then, because things might happen, and I do like writing quick, and I mean quick commentary pieces that are very reactive of something that's happening of the moment. I'll every morning I'll get up and I'll see what's happened overnight, and sometimes that'll sort of just an idea will come into my head. I'll think, oh, that could be really potentially a good comment piece on blah, and then I'll approach one of the publications, all online nowadays, obviously, that they may like a comment piece on that particular matter. And they'll either go, oh, no, it's sort of done, but isn't it funny? But then you think it's like a 12-hour old story. But often they'll already say, oh, no, it's already done. So I think we all have to sort of work very quickly now as well, because particularly in this space, but different if you're doing like a lovely, big, strong, longer feature on a, like if I do a travel
profile or something.
Your profile, then I'll sit and I'll spend, a day or two to really let it soak in and then write it accordingly. But even so, deadlines are always in the back of my mind. It's very rare, I think, that any of us now can sort of say, oh, well, I've got a couple of months to do that. Which was sort of, and even with print, when I was doing a weekly columns for those Sunday papers, there were different days that we had to have different pages put to bed. Like, this is all that sort of old language, of course, from heritage media days. But at least it didn't all have to be done on a couple of hours before. You had actually different days to be like, okay, well, that on the Tuesday can we have that fashion page done, and then by the Wednesday we'll start doing that lifestyle interview that you've done, and we'll lay that out. And it's just, as we know, it's a different ballgame now with digital. But I actually like the pace of digital, to be honest.
Well, you obviously wear a lot of hats. I mean, you do commentating, you do radio, you still do a lot of writing. What's your favourite thing to do?
My favourite thing is actually is TV commentary and radio and talking. I mean, I like writing, but I much prefer to. I mean, I could get up on a stage now and be it at a launch of something, or talk about a particular issue, or if I'm about to introduce a celebrity who's here for a reason. I actually love that. I love that sort of one-on-one and seeing people in an audience and then reacting to whether if I'm interviewing someone. I love that. I really just get a real kick out of that. And I still get a kick out of when I see a story having been published. You know, when you actually see your name and you know, and with with a really good SEO headline and you sort of think, oh, I don't know, there's still a buzz I get out of that.
Yeah.
So I think all of those, and I love putting together really, well, hopefully social media posts that I'm proud of, whether it is a reel. And I think I like to keep in that social world things sort of authentic, as you know, as in, you know, a lot of people are putting together the most exquisitely, beautifully edited reels, you know, and that they're amazing, and you know, and they've used cameras that, you know, they've used drones and thing, but some of them I think look so good they look as though they are an ad that have got, you know, that has cost $500,000 to produce. So I think that authenticity, and there has been quite a pushback now with that, particularly with Insta, people wanting more authenticity as opposed to everyone looking the same and just looking like they've all sort
polished,
of filtered and polished to death.
But talking about Instagram, we talked about this a bit off air, because it's a very glamorous life you lead. It looks like it's really fabulous, but I know that it's a lot harder than it looks, and there's a lot of work that goes into what you do and where you go. What's a week really like for you, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's interesting, because something that I think probably a lot of people get asked who put up stuff on social media that is perceived to be glamorous. A lot of people say, oh, Melissa, oh, you're so busy, always going to these amazing things. You lead such a great life. And yes, you know, I go to some great things, whether it's an opening night or I just had a lovely weekend as guests of Threadbow in the snow, because it was their big opening weekend and there happened to be snow. And so it was just, from a visual, it was fantastic. So all of that, you know, people would see on your Instagram and they think, oh, your life is constantly that. But let's face it, if I started to put up the fact that, like, after we speak today, you know, I've got washing to do. You know, we've got our normal stuff to do. I've got to take the dog to the vet. I've got to cook something for tonight for dinner. Like, you know, because I choose not to sort of put up stories or anything about, I guess, the real side of all of our lives. The perception is that my silly little life is 24/7 going out to parties and going out, when it's so isn't it? I mean, you think if I go to something, that is like 2 hours out of a 24-hour day. So you put that up as a post, and that's the assumption that, oh, wow, gee, she goes to, oh, that's what she does all the time. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I mean that not in a negative sense, but because I don't put up all the normal stuff. Okay, but then I think you do have to temper your platforms with that as well. Like, you know, with Mother's Day, you know, my mum, who hasn't been very well, like, you put up a shot of that because, you know, you also have to be, like, everyone. We're all real. You know, I was in hospital a couple of months ago for a couple of weeks, and you know, and I really tossed and turned. Well, I put something up, but I think and I did. I think I just was getting out of hospital. I actually put up a post just saying, "Oh, I've actually been in here." And I didn't want to do it as in, oh, I bet you'd be wondering where I am, because it's so not about that. You know, I think it's like when people announce they're leaving social media. It's not a you know, it's not a plain boarding lounge. Like, if you choose to leave social media, just go. You know, I don't think you really have to do the big announcement. Oh, maybe if you're a big celebrity, yes. You know, when people say, I'm going to be off social media for the next week because I need some me time. and then literally 7 days later, they are back. It's like, oh, I'm back. Did you miss me? I mean, I think, no. And it's not being sort of nasty, but it's just being, well, I think everyone's got their lives. And if you're sort of living every moment of your life just to see what everyone else is doing on social media, that is actually quite seriously, that can be quite mentally draining. So I think you can't just use social media as your total form of entertainment.
And I think you're right that a lot of people just don't notice. It's like with email marketing, you know, the advice is, you know, if you've dropped the ball and haven't sent a newsletter for 3 months, do you go back in and say, I'm so sorry, I haven't, you know, been in your inbox for 3 months? But people don't even really remember. So yeah, you don't have to make a big song and dance about.
Yeah, and then there are times that that even I think, I better put something up. And it's sort of this something in the back of my mind saying, I better put something up because, gee, people might. And then I pull myself back. And I think, no one. I mean, your friends, if you are unwell or you are choosing not to put things up, your real friends know that you're not well or whatever. But yeah, I think we probably think we're much more important. Or a lot of people think they're much more important than they really are in other people's lives.
I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned like the smoke and mirrors and having all these different things to do. What are the challenges though of, juggling all the multiple income streams that you have? And do you think it's like inevitable for us as writers to do this now? Like we have to have these multiple income streams to make a living?
Well, certainly in my case, I sort of had to because, I mean, I look at you two and you two are incredibly prolific from a writing point of view. I mean, I love writing and I enjoy writing and I would love to do more and more and more. But I think there was so many more freelancers out there that you do have to sort of also concentrate on potential other streams to potentially make money.
Yeah.
No one's going to say, "Oh my God, we need to get Melissa Hoyer to write that," because I mean, I'm not the best writer in the world, and I actually quite enjoy doing those other things, whether it is a hosting gig or a television appearance. And then too, the other thing which is interesting, and a lot of, because there are so many people out there, so many more freelancers, and a lot of people doing a lot for nothing. It is. I think we're all finding that there are always people who will just say, "Yeah, I will do that. I will do that for nothing because I'm getting a byline." We are also competing with that as well. And then let's face it, if you are a website owner and you're going to get a story that actually is going to be okay, and the person is going to fulfill the brief, and they're going to do it for nothing, as opposed to giving it to someone who's going to charge whatever. I mean, they're thinking purely financially sometimes, as opposed to thinking quality.
Yeah, that can come up a lot in travel writing, I think. I've heard, you have these sort of grey nomads pitching stories and and offering to do it for nothing. But it really undermines travel writers out there who've made a living out of travel writing.
Absolutely, yeah. The assumption then is that, well, you've got the free gig. If you're doing a travel piece on blah, well, you've got the trip away. So just be grateful you've got the trip away.
It's interesting too. I think this is more prevalent in the sort of glamour parts of the business too, which is where you are. I mean, I don't have anyone wanting to work for nothing to write about bricks, like at that end. But when you're writing about celebrity or doing TV stuff or travel, there's much more of that, of the
That is so right, Lynn, because the assumption is in those worlds, whether it's a beauty or frocks or fashion week or travel or opening nights, people will say, I'll throw some words together and I'll do it because I'm getting a night out. But it's relative. So I think maybe I should be writing more about bricks, Lynn. So
I'll give you tips later.
And that's a good thing. I mean, that's a bad thing. I love writing about anything, but I love that whole. I mean, that lovely umbrella of popular culture is so many things. I would write about anything. So, hello everyone listening. More than happy to.
We've had a lot of journalists that we've had on the podcast, and we see in our sort of, freelance lives that leaving media and retraining, and that seems to be much more prevalent. Obviously, media is in a bit of trouble. Has there been a moment when you've considered that, or is this just your DNA?
Absolutely. There's actually been a moment, not that I have ever thought, that's it, I'm absolutely getting out of it, but I have thought, actually, there was one moment a couple of years ago, I thought, I'm actually going to just start studying law. And not because that sounds sort of all grand, but, you just sort of think, as you get older, again, it's that curious thing. I remember when I was really, really young, I wanted to be a doctor. Like, we all wanted to be a thing. But even way up until, like, I finished school, like year 12, but no, I think, I just had this thing about being a doctor. And then, of course, I sort of got this sort of media bargain. So Dr. Hoyer didn't happen. But Yeah, then a few years ago, I thought, no, I think it was just during COVID. I actually thought I wanted to sort of just start studying or doing something because, we were all, I know, again, and in my particular fields of media, that was just all decimated. I mean, let's face it, there were no events on, there was no one travelling, there were no celebrities coming here to interview, there was nothing. I remember doing so many sort of Zoom, a lot of sort of alcohol brands were doing just Zoom things where they'd send different journalists or media like a little pack of something, and then that at 6:00 that night there'd be a Zoom where they'd have their cocktail maker host a class, and we would all be on Zoom, and we'd be like following along and then following the lead, and then doing it. If we were doing a piece, choosing to write a piece about
virtual cocktail hour.
The COVID cocktail packs. I remember those too.
Which is all fun,
Yeah.
but there's only so much of that you can sort of do.
Yeah.
But in my sort of world, to be honest, COVID really decimated a lot of the types of pop culture sort of tentacles that I work under. And I still think now it sort of decimated. It's come back, but certainly nothing. I don't think nothing has really gone back to we all pre-COVID days, because then during COVID people were doing things for nothing, and then post-COVID they sort of just continued doing things for nothing, and it hasn't really changed in some areas. So I think you really have to. I just figure I'm always hustling. I'm always sending emails to editors of different, whether it's publications, whether it's websites. Hi, I do this, I do that, and then I send examples of the sort of commentary pieces I can do, the sort of lifestyle pieces, the sort of travel pieces. Always sending. I've got documents of links to my stories that I'll send. Then hoping that someone might say, okay, well, So it's a constant hustle. So I spend a lot of my day
hustling. Yeah.
What about like the TV commentating do you do, like on celebrities and lifestyle topics and that sort of thing? I know people would be interested to know, like, is that work really well paid? Is it hard to get into? Is it all about who you know?
That initially really, when I was in sort of newspaper land and then news.com land, at that stage, because I was doing celebrity and fashion and all that sort of, again, perceived glamorous stuff, when they needed sort of a comment from someone, like whether it was 9 News, 7 News, and that was very much in the free-to-air, when there was just free-to-air days, they would send, their camera crew and a journalist over to News Corp or to Fairfax or whoever, and they'd be, okay, Melissa Hoyer, social editor. And so it's sort of, they wanted to use someone who sort of already had a knowledge and was known in that
respected platform, really.
Yeah, well, that's right. Which was great. So that really established, I guess, because I even have now, and I don't do it as much because the budgets just aren't there. I mean, when I was doing a lot on like Sunrise and the morning show, that there were, and I'm saying pre-COVID and even early COVID, there were budgets, and now I don't do as much because I don't think there are budgets for those sort of things now. When you'll see a particular expert talking about whether it's health or fashion or whatever. Yeah, so that has changed a lot for me. I mean, so I don't do as much, only because I don't get asked as much, because I think there aren't the budgets. Then they probably think, well, better not. We can't be asking all the time for everyone to be doing things for nothing. But like today's thing, that's not when I do a comment piece, and literally the camera crew will arrive at home. They'll set up some lights. It'll be 5 minutes. I'll be in. I'll be out. But there'll be no payment for that. No. So you have to either make that choice where, and maybe I'm talking out of school saying that, but you have to be real. If I was able to say, okay, well, I'll send that invoice, they'd probably just say, well, I know it's fine. We'll just send the crew to someone else. So.
Yeah.
Do you think of it like a visibility or marketing thing for you?
Yeah, but I guess I do to a degree. But I sort of when it was getting to the point where I was being asked a lot to do it, and it was all going to be nothing for nothing. You have to value your own brand, whatever
Yeah.
you call yourself, because you can't do everything for nothing. Like the person who is shooting me on that shot today, is he doing the camera work for nothing? No. Is the producer doing that for nothing? No. So I don't do it as much because I think and I think all of us as freelancers, you do have to sort of band together to a degree as well, and say, well, that we do have to make a point that we can't be doing everything for nothing, because that doesn't pay my huge gas bill I just got the other day, the electricity bill, the insurance, the thing. So but it's a tough one. But and I also get to the point where I think at my stage of career and life, I'm sure you too, and that I'm me, my brand is me. Do I need the when people say, oh, it's good for the exposure? Oh, please. Like,
you don't need the exposure now. No.
I haven't got to the point where people kind of know me in my little crazy area, c'est la vie. But I think that, but to think of the exposure, no, it's fine. It's fine. But thank you for asking. But no, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I wonder also, there is, what about media events like emceeing? You said you do that. I mean, I know they're often paid, and they're usually paid. I mean, I do get asked to do things for nothing and I say no, but and I do it occasionally, but I know it's also a lot harder than it looks. There's a lot of research and stuff. Do brands approach you, and how does that conversation go?
It's usually brands or sort of the organizer of an event will message me, text me, oh, listen, we're doing this event. Would you be interested in da da da? Well, and then they'll say, and please send us what your fee would be, which is which I always think, if it's something for charity, which I involve myself in a lot of like worthy events. Sure, I would not expect to be paid, but if I'm doing something for a commercial company, and I think, well, I know I do a good job. I've never had anyone complain about it. And it isn't just a matter, and I think that is really important. People just think, I just get there, you can just grab the microphone and you do it. Well, no, I always like to go knowing about exactly every element, every moment of whatever the person is or the business I'm about to do something for. So, so the research is there, and I think when you do, it shows. If you know your subject matter, it shows. And it's like if you're doing an on-stage interview with a celeb or something, it's like, if people are looking at their questions all the time and they don't let the interview flow, that is so frustrating when someone is answering a question and then the interviewer doesn't continue with this beautiful flow that the celeb or the CEO or whoever you're talking to. I love them going totally off script and going right, and then continuing on with that train of thought that we've just heard from this celebrity. But I hate it when they basically get cut off because the interviewer looks at their questions and goes, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, so when you started working, what were you doing? It's like, no, you've actually, you just stopped this amazing train of thought that your celeb or your whoever. So that is really frustrating. And that's what I love. I love to, in my mind, I know exactly what I want to get from a person that I'm interviewing, whether it is a hosting gig, whether it's an interview, and then it sort of evolves. And then, and always in the back of my mind, the 5 amazing key points that you want to get in order to write your story. But yeah, I think I love that continuing curiosity of hearing someone speak, because but what they're saying is then they often will say the most interesting things sort of unprompted.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about relationship marketing for someone who you used to be on staff, now you're freelancing. I think you've talked recently on LinkedIn about having a crazy good career contact list.
Yep.
So, and you've talked about pitching and that sort of thing, hustling a lot. How do you think it's important to keep in touch with lots of people? Is that what fills your pipeline? Do you have a sort of system?
I think it is important, and I think it's interesting. Sort of going back to when we were talking about the perception, you go to events and all that sort of thing. I make sure that I'll at least once a week I'll go to something that I've been very kindly still invited to, because I may not have been any use to this particular company or,
Yeah.
but I think it's still really important, when you are freelance, to still get out there and be visible. And that doesn't mean going out every night, because I could not think of anything worse. And when I was doing a social column, yes, that's what I was getting paid to go to an event in order to do. And the photographer would be there. And the next day we'd write it up, and it would be in there's 8 pages of social pages, and it's a different world, way different world now. But I still think it's important to be out there and just to still see different editors, and so I probably choose quite hopefully wisely, choose an event to go to that I think, that'll be fun. Well, number one, I want to go to it, and it'll be good because I'll be able to catch up with blah, blah, and blah. So I think it is still important to have a presence. And I know that is probably a lot of people think, I couldn't think of anything worse than having to walk into that room and having, especially when it's winter and it's getting cold. I mean, as we love being, and this is the lovely thing of freelance as well, you can sort of be at home all day doing your stuff and still be in your Ugg boots. But when you have to go out at sort of 6 o'clock to an event, and put on the red lipstick and get dressed, and do your hair, and put on a pair of shoes aside from Ugg boots. Yeah, it's but I always think, no, I'm doing this. I have to, because if you're not visible, particularly in the world in which I sort of am kind of writing about, and within, you when you disappear, you kind of disappear.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about your experience as a freelancer, because I know after being on staff, do you find, I think you've written about this on your socials a bit, about is it hard being a freelancer? Because do you think there's you get forgotten more, or even though you probably write the bulk of those stories compared to people in-house?
It is an interesting, I mean, I love the freedom of it. I mean, the fact that you can then choose to, over an entire weekend, write, if you're writing something, or you can then take a whole week off, and if I'm going somewhere. But yeah, I think having been on staff and then going into that freelance world, a number of years ago, it was a big leap, because you are. When I first left newspaper land, and this was before digital kicked in, I remember people saying, "Oh, why are you doing that?" But it was just it was right at the start of digital, thank God. So I sort of leapt into that sort of digital space really early on. So I think it sort of worked sort of positively back then, because there weren't many. Everyone was either an absolute born and bred freelancer, that was their gig, or they had full-time jobs. So when I left a full-time job and went freelance, not a lot of people had sort of done that then, if that makes sense. Nearly everyone had a job. They were on staff for, whether it was a magazine, a newspaper, producing a radio or TV show. There were more full-time jobs. So I sort of got into that digital space sort of early on. But I think I probably don't get thought for as much for freelance gigs, because I think there is an assumption, Melissa's so busy, because I look at her social media and she's got so much going on, we won't even ask her. And I'm actually thinking, I actually put up a thing on LinkedIn. I'm being quite serious. So I think that's what you might be referring to, Lynn, just a few weeks ago, saying, hi, sort of reminding people that, I can do this and I can do that. And I've done a lot of sort of consulting with some companies too, just about their social media sort of presence, and suggesting maybe the sort of stuff they should do. And I was working also with I still do a little bit of work with a thing called the Bay Street Initiative, which is actually trying to, with the New South Wales government and the federal government, are really trying to enhance the going out economies of different sort of precincts. So like Double Bay is a precinct in Sydney that they're really trying to amp up as somewhere to go. So there's local governments are putting money into these sort of initiatives. So I really love trying to use the people that the experience I have, the media sort of experience I've had, in other ways, because you have to sort of think of other ways you can use your knowledge and your contact list. And I think on that post I said, oh my God, I've got a groaning sort of contact list and contacts that like all of us we've just met over the years, and when you do sort of new things, you sort of think, oh, that would be a good person to talk to about that. So no, it's that. So I'm always looking for stuff, because it's nothing just comes to you 20, like every day. I don't wake up and there's not an email saying, oh, Hoya, can you write this? Now I have to sort of think about the story and suggest, would you like this story, which can sometimes, as you probably both know, it's get a little bit tiresome, but hey, it keeps your mind going and keeps us young, I think.
Yeah. Well, I know you have a fairly newish Substack. So tell us a bit about why you started that and what your plans are for
I think so new that I think I've only put one thing on it, but no.
So it won't be a blind entertainment column.
So anyway, so I've got a Substack, but because actually I've got a website as well. So I can actually go into my WordPress and really write something very, very, very quickly, and crop the shots and do a great SEO headline. I can do something, on that, and then I can put that directly up onto my website, within a matter of, half an hour if I choose to. So anyway, I did think, okay, I better go into Substack because everyone's on Substack. So I have started it, but I'm going to be really honest, but I haven't really become passionate about it yet. And I mean, I keep getting all these notifications. Blah blah has posted on Substack, and I've chosen to keep those notifications on because it actually reminds me that, Melissa, you actually need to really get your Substack going. So I really have to try harder, Rach.
Fair enough.
It's one more thing, isn't it?
You can start following me, but I will promise that this week I'm going to actually really. See, now I'm going to do this. I do have to, because really what I'm putting up on my website, I should just be writing that, but putting it on Substack. Also on Substack, from my point of view, it doesn't have to be. It's not 1,000-word extravaganzas. It can be just something, a train of thought that is just coming to my mind. I can just go bang, bang, bang. And I think that's what I want. When I read someone's Substack, that's what I want. I want to read someone's immediate, whether it's crazy thoughts or relevant or good newsy thoughts about something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do love to ask all our guests about their favourite tech tips or the tools they'd be lost without. What are your favourites?
Well, I mean, I am loving ChatGPT.
Yes.
But I mean that it's funny because I mean, if you're just trying to think of whether it's a spike for a good headline or just a spike for a good lead to a story that you're writing, so I'll just put in some elements and then it will give me some ideas. But I'm not one of those people who go, give me a 500-word story on blah blah blah. Because I've known people who do that, and I think that is so wrong. That is so wrong. But that's their choice. They can do that. I've used Canva a bit. The tools. I mean,
what about for social media? Do you use anything for scheduling or anything like that?
A number of years ago, I started to schedule things, but I do everything very much
On the fly.
very individually, because an X post versus a Facebook post versus something on TikTok versus something on Instagram. To me, they're all I use different tones, so I can never just do the one sort of SEO headline for all of them. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know that probably sounds very time consuming, but for me it isn't, because I like to write things that are attuned to that particular platform. And I remember quite a number of years ago starting to put everything across every platform, but it was all the same sort of headline that just didn't work. And I know a lot of, obviously, media companies schedule things. I was in that space for so long, particularly at news.com. But sometimes I'll look at a headline and I'll think, no, but that doesn't really work now on X and Facebook and Instagram. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. This has been such a great chat, Melissa. Thank you so much. Let us know where people can find you and check out your portfolio and your socials and your Substack if it's got a Smith
well,
name.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
if everything is on me and Melissa Hoyer, just my Melissa Hoyer website, but I'm pretty simple. Everything is just Melissa. So if you chuck in the name Melissa Hoyer on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on X, it's all there. So that's how early I got in, like you guys got into social.
That was lucky.
I actually got my Melissa Hoyer without having to put ones or
Yeah.
or anything else. So it's basically everywhere. I'm just Melissa Hoyer.
Yeah. Silver linings of being in this business for like decades.
Absolutely.
We got our domain names.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thanks so much, Melissa. It's so lovely to chat with you. So interesting. We had a good laugh. I'll put links in the show notes to all your details and everything, all your the many aspects of Melissa Hoyer out there.
Yes.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, so don't forget to, if you love the show, leave a rating and review on the platform where you find your podcasts, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks.
Bye,
Rach.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.